Hi, I'm Kelly Miller. I am an educator, feminist, and campaign manager, and you're watching Atheist Edge.
It's also fun.
It is, and that's what it is. It's an opportunity to play with, so Joseph Campbell, the power of myth and all that. And I saw that on PBS as a kid in the 80s. And that was eye-opening to my atheism as well, because then I started to realize, oh, it's not just Jesus.
No,
there are stories.
There are myriad ways to get from point A to point B.
Exactly, and suddenly, why people can study myths and not then question their own religion? I don't get that.
Outsider's test of faith. That's the best way to look at things. Is like, why would I say that somebody else's supernatural beliefs are incorrect, and then turn those thoughts inward into your own belief system and be like, okay, so if I use the same criteria to judge them, let me use the same criteria to judge myself. And does it hold up? Yeah. If it doesn't, then you got your answer. You know, it's like,
if you could disprove 1,400 gods,
yes,
you could disprove one.
Yeah, it's like it's like Pascal's wager. Like you can't, if you're gonna say Pascal's wager, like you can apply that to Zeus. Yeah. And be like, well, if you don't believe in Zeus, you could be in big trouble. Yeah. Gosh, it gets exhausting.
I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I don't remember. But like the idea of having I'm kind of going back to the patriot thing. It's kind of going back a little bit, but what I really like about what you said was like the idea of criticizing the authority of the country as patriotism, like making the country better, and so I do really appreciate that about what you were saying of like this idea of like blind nationalism versus a healthy like protest out of patriotic duty. Like that's
absolutely
important.
I think that's what the founders wanted, and a lot of people will, and I'm pro Second Amendment. So I'm not anti-gun.
We agree on a lot of stuff here.
Right, but there is also that element of there's no harm in asking why, and it is patriotic to stand up and say this doesn't look right. It doesn't pass the smell test. We need to.
It's the ultimate act of patriotism to question one's.
In that idealistic sense, I think, because there's still a lot of baggage there. Like you have to think about all the cruelty committed by early Americans, and I'm not even that early, throughout American history, and the imperialism and how indigenous people were treated and all that. So it's
ideologically, based on what we have as the ideal, the way it's supposed to work. It's that acknowledgement that things went wrong. That people were not, liberty was not afforded to everyone from the get-go. And there's no harm in admitting that didn't happen.
But the way we change that is recognizing fundamental mechanisms. Like if people weren't allowed to oppose bad ideas publicly, we would have never got to the point that we're at now. So that's why I say it's a fundamental mechanism, and a lot of people are like, oh no, you shouldn't be able to say this, you should prosecute if you say that. No. Like the most problematic and most abhorrent speech is the speech that we have to protect. Because if it's considered abhorrent by somebody who is immorally or morally in the wrong, we should have to have the ability to say the opposite of what they're saying.
And if they're in the majority.
And if they're in the majority, of course.
That's a large part of why that matters too, is that minority voices need to be able to count and need to have a lack of prosecution for that.
I think we should lift up minority voices much. I don't really care if I hear of like Milo Yiannopoulos getting banned from a school. I don't give a fuck. I want to see people who have been marginalized get the chance to speak and be heard. I want to hear what they have to say, and I want to support them.
That have been systematically suppressed for hundreds of years in this nation. That needs to be addressed.
So. Well, and so the issue with like deplatforming people is that yes, some people have perspectives that can be poisonous, but there's no group, especially minority group or majority group, that can decide that.
Yes.
And so that's a slippery slope of like, we're going to, as the majority, decide that what you're saying is poisonous and we're going to deplatform you.
Exactly.
Do we want to have this conversation?
We could probably do
no, she's totally
right.
Well, because I think that in this instance, we've always agreed.
We've always agreed on that.
And what's funny is, like, I've had Jim and TJ both assume that I didn't think this.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've had discussions on camera where they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. I'm like, yes, I'm rational, you know. So it's funny.
You know,
but,
yeah.
Yeah, but it's really, I think that's an important distinction to make of like of there. Yes, there's a recognition that that there is speech that has a negative impact, but the cure to that is to drown that out with better speech.
More speech.
And
yes.
at least from my opinion, you know.
I think in a lot of cases you're
and
right.
we can,
I agree. Like, I'm not in total
it's unpopular
disagreement
with a lot of
but
leftist progressives, but hate speech is free speech. I'm sorry.
Calling for violence.
Yeah.
Is,
yes,
it's
but
under
that's
the
not
Geneva
speech.
Convention.
That's an action. You're
Not
actually
necessarily.
imminently calling for something to happen to somebody. That's an action.
Legally
It's a nuanced
written out.
issue.
Yes,
Yeah.
It is actually
It is.
said.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Texas statute says
fighting words.
What is
fighting words.
What is hate speech? All this. So it is codified. So it's to me, it's not this amorphous gray area where we have to feel it out. No, seriously.
No.
The law says
there are things. Yeah.
And that when someone says that a certain group of people need to die because
like Nazis
X,
say that about everyone else.
If somebody's saying that, then that to me that constitutes a.
So if they get deplatformed, cool.
Yeah,
fine.
I just want them to be able to get less followers so they can do less harm and stop actually killing people.
I'm not stopping them to go. They can still go.
I also think you martyr people though when you do some of these things.
The flip side of the coin is sunlight is a great discipline.
It is. I would like to know.
Yeah, it depends on the situation.
I'm glad when the bigots fucking spew their hate because I know who the bigot is.
Yeah, you want to know like who your enemy is.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, hey, okay, I got you.
Yeah, so,
we can talk about this for a long time.
We've gone down the rabbit. We've started down the rabbit hole.
We're very good at
I brought my shovel. I'm willing to go.
Okay, you're good then.
We're very good at like peacefully disagreeing.
Yeah, it's okay to agree to disagree.
Absolutely.
So one thing I think that atheists and Satanists probably have in common is that pop culture gets us wrong all the time.
Yes.
So I wasn't sure if there was either like a particularly egregious wrong that like really sticks in your craw about how the media represents you, like in movies or TV or whatnot, or an especially like surprisingly good representation that you thought like you would refer people to if they want to know.
Yes. Okay. So one funny thing. So I'm sure everybody's seen like Sabrina on Netflix now. So besides no cannibalism or magic or anything like scary like that, but if you look at like how the household functions, like with the cute ways that they talk to each other, like Sabrina's family, and the traditions that they have, and the fun things that they do, and the terms that they use, I think that's pretty accurate to a lot of satanic households. It's really kitschy. Satanists love kitsch.
The most recent instance of Sabrina did capture, to a degree, what a satanic household looks like, and that's because those are the fun parts. Watching just how people live and seeing that represented, that's fun. I like seeing that.
Can you clarify what that is? Because I'm probably never watching that show.
Oh, okay.
It's so fun.
It looks like it's a little. It looks a little disturbing to me.
Are you not a fan of like horror or other things?
No.
It's more like dark
not a horror
comedy,
fan.
but there are some spooky things.
I can't.
That's more of a cop drama.
Oh, Lucifer.
I love, but I
he's
love
a
Neil
DC
Gaiman.
character, right?
I love Neil Gaiman.
American Gods.
I do kind of watch that,
amazing
but
show.
I don't know the stuff like American Horror Story and stuff like I can't stomach it. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
appreciate that it's well done or whatever and people love it.
Extremely
I can't. It's gonna stick with me and give me nightmares and I can't do it. So
That's understandable.
not worth it for me.
So there will be scenes where they're literally just sitting over the satanic family is sitting around the dining room table having conversation, and someone will say something that's kind of like self-deprecating or something like that, and they're like, "What? Have your satanic pride. You're strong. You are your own god. Be that. You know. So don't calm yourself down." Little things of like, have a good day, hail Satan.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Satan. We'll say this stuff like that all the time. time, like in our group.
And that's what our communication
We have
is.
the title to this episode. I was about to say Hell Satan. That's a good. That's a good Hell Satan. And thumbnail, the thumbnail needs to be like Harvey Keitel from.
Or to
Don't
just
let me forget group photos before they leave. Too.
Yeah.
You say Harvey Keitel
from Lil Nicky. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh my god! I just saw that for the first time. What a ride!
I went Bad Lieutenant and just kind of tucking and all that.
Yeah.
So,
Have you guys seen the movie called Beautiful Creatures?
Yes. Yeah, that's.
I really love like what they have to say about like the Christian perspective. It's really there's some speeches in there that are really amazing.
God's Not Dead also, that moved me. To yell at the TV some more.
Oh dear.
God is dead and we killed him.
Yes, I'm going to need all of you to write that.
I've seen that in a Minion game.
We're like the Klingons. Like, we had gods, we killed them.
Right.
Sorry. They were more trouble than they were worth. Exactly. Worf is a very, very
Star Trek has like made some amazing
episodes
about like religiosity and belief and like
we want a Star Trek
that
future.
When I showed that episode that I showed you where Picard's like, look, these people have broken themselves from the God belief. It's essentially this is what he says. I'm not directly quoting, but he says essentially like, look, these people that we're interacting with, they have broken themselves of their God belief, right? Who am I to take that away from them? Like, why should I disabuse them of their liberation? Exactly is what in essence is what he says. So it's like, and I agree with that sentiment totally. Like
the proto-Vulcan.
Like the everybody is like the same gender or there's no gender or whatever.
Jesus, that episode. So in '96,
so progressive for its time. So fucking progressive for its time.
Addressed gender.
Yeah.
In '96, and Riker falls in love with the
one that wants to be a woman. She says she wants to. She doesn't want no gender anymore.
And
she wants to be.
Kiss on TV.
Yeah.
Oh, but that was in the '60s.
Yeah, that was the earlier.
Of her.
No, but that's Star Trek.
Fuck yeah, Star Trek.
That's
so
always
profound on so many levels. That I mean,
so in negative. I mean. All you have to do is go to, Netflix, go to horror, and there is a subtitle or a subcategory for satanic horror.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So as far as satanic horror, it's cool. I mean, I troll that all the time. I'm watching all the films.
Yeah, I love the films of the '70s.
Yeah,
some of the recent ones like
I
House of the Devil.
B movies.
I love
B movies are fun.
Movies,
They're
fun.
fun.
Yeah. They're so
I
bad.
still
They're
can't
awesome.
I think the biggest misconception, so at work, a really good friend of mine, and he and I have a great time whenever we get to go to conferences and stuff together. He's Southern Baptist, and he loves me, and I love him. He's amazing, and we are tight. But he will sit there and we're drinking and we're at the bar, and he's like, "But aren't you evil?" It's like,
But wait, have you ever? How many times do you get this? You're what? But you're so nice.
I get that all the time.
And this is what he has trouble reconciling. He's like, "But aren't you evil?" I'm like, "No."
Well, he rescues kittens.
Not even a
How
little
can he
bit.
evil?
Right. There's almost that hope that I don't have a police record.
They would love to make a boogeyman out of you.
Right.
Yeah, but there's nothing there. Like,
you're like, I need a boogeyman.
I pay my taxes. I rescue kittens.
and raccoons.
I give to charity. I'm a subscriber to NPR. I'm a sustaining member.
Yeah.
KPRA.
Well, but that makes perfect sense though, because it really feeds into the level of security that person has, that their path is the righteous path, and that there's a reason that they've chosen that path, and a lot of the time a religious identification has a counterpart to it that's supposed to be less satisfying of a life, like we were talking about earlier.
Can I ask you, do you think, I'm asking you, do you think that has more to do with like people needing, or at least ideologies needing an enemy figure?
I mean,
I know people in a sense, like
people. I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
My background's in psychology, and so like there is a a really strong innate tendency of human beings to have an in-group versus out-group, and
to other.
And no matter, like, there have been recent neuro studies of, like, they've tried to draw this line between, you know, how much of a difference between you and someone else does there have to be for you to want them to have a less prosperous situation than you do in your group. And it's sort of this innate need that the group that we are in needs to have some sort of thing, something special about it that required our specialness to be a member. And then, so there's an idea of, like, in-group, out-group, but it's rooted in this idea of, like, insecurity of, like, of we have to have something special about the group that means that that's why we're a member, and that's why these other people aren't as special. And of course, this is all subconscious, like, it's not something we choose to do.
No, yeah.
But what they have found is that there is no line of how different someone else has to be than you. And so, like, nothing, like, it can be something extremely arbitrary, and it's still there. So that's a reference from a podcast that I just listened to recently.
Well, that partly
You Were Not So Smart podcast. There you go.
Well, that partly gets to what I was trying to get at, but also too, then the follow on to that is that you think maybe then it is sort of an evolutionary reaction or artifact of competition. Like,
well, that's what I mean is that in-group, out-group, it creates a competition that you have to be, your group has to be better than that group.
We need to be more prosperous than the next guy, because if we're not, we run the risk of not being having continuity.
We fear loss, and we fear not enough. If you want to go back far enough evolutionarily, if someone has a bigger pile of food than I have, then that means I'm going to starve soon. So I've got to be
exactly.
So there have been studies where, like, you can decide once there's been an in-group, out-group established on something extremely arbitrary and not actually true. Like, they're just told that they're part of this group, and they may not actually be. So I guess I'll just use the example of each person in the study is given, like, a page of a series of dots, like a lot of dots, and you're supposed to try and guess how many dots there are on the page, and you're told whether you are an overestimator or an underestimator, and they don't even count the number of dots that you said, they just give you a label, and then based on that they do a different study that seems to be unrelated to that person, that you have the opportunity to get, like, a certain amount of money given to you and the other group, and so you can either give everybody $5 or give your group $4 and the other group gets $3, and people pick that second one for some reason, and they've done,
even though it gives them less money. I just don't want this guy to have the equal share.
So the idea is that they are giving, they are creating a higher status for their group even at the cost of their group, and so that's what's really interesting, is that there's an innate idea of you need to feel that your group is superior because you need to feel superior, and it's really interesting. But so to your question though, I don't know if that's something that's, like, with religion, that there needs to be an other, but that's certainly a human thing, and religion is a result of our human psychology as well, and so it makes perfect sense that it would just be a byproduct of that.
I think it's hard to figure out whether or not religion was the natural, like, symptom of humanness, or whether religion came about somehow in a fluke, like, accident and just influenced humanness.
Well, I think it's definitely the former.
Okay.
That, you know, obviously there's no way we could, like, know that for sure, but it makes perfect sense of our natural psychology of finding patterns and looking for agency and these things that have been cultivated through our evolution.
Well, I know you don't believe in the God-shaped hole, though.
I don't know, Benny.
Like, you think that, I don't think that you believe that was a necessary.
Well, meaning I think
like a survival mechanism.
No, I think that it's a natural byproduct that was probably inevitable because of the way that we engage with the world around us,
yes.
and the way that we assume agency, and it's a way of finding patterns and finding meaning and all these things. And so we've come to a point of evolution now where we are finding that sort of meaning and understanding through science and through critical thinking and scientific method. And so we are replacing our ignorant engagement with the world with an informed engagement with the world, and a need to ask questions rather than make up answers. And so, however, it is a byproduct of our biology, and I think that's the reason that these things are so compelling. It is comforting to have like the idea that something is taking care of everything for you, or that whatever. So I think it's something that's definitely evolutionary, and makes perfect sense that came about, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have it in the form that it is now in order to be a cohesive, happy community. We can find other things to gather around.
Ladies and gentlemen, Courtney, she's
that was. I mean, that was excellent. Absolutely. So it's almost like Satanism in its current incarnation can almost be considered like a religion for the post-religious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And because we're secularists, I mean, almost every Satanist I know is a secularist, no matter what sort of like faction they belong to. But they still want. So like when I think about the happy things that I remember from my church-going days, it's like going to the cookout, the potluck. You know, I liked some of the songs because I love to sing and I love music. So I was like, you know, I like the worship songs or whatever because it felt like a concert. And, you know, I liked, you know, the sort of group building activities, and I liked the holidays. So a lot of people say those same things. And then there are people who they're like cradle atheists, like Jim, and they're like, well, this sort of religious community is a new thing to me, but I kind of like it. So you have all sorts, but like with our group, which you can check out at thecrossroadsassembly.com. At the Crossroads Assembly on Instagram and Facebook. We'll post like our public events, which we have at least one public social a month. We have like a restaurant or a bar. We'll always post if you need to be like 21 plus to go, but at least 18 plus. And we just because we have some family friendly events if it's like if it's like a potluck or a cookout, but because a lot of times there's alcohol involved in adult conversation, unless you're like the child of a member. But we also have a Facebook group. So if you go to our Facebook page, the Crossroads Assembly, you'll see it's a link to a Facebook group called Strangers at the Crossroads, and that's where we post our actual details of the events. We'll also be having like a mailing list soon where you can, you know, sign up for additional details as well if you're not on Facebook. But yeah, so we have those, you know, everybody knows it's like the first Saturday of every month. If I want to go hang out with Satanists or Satan adjacent people, we have a lot of pagans and non-satanic atheists who hang out with us. And you know, so we'll go have a good time, have drinks, have food, have great conversation. We have like 6 holidays a year, about a month and a half between them. And we have a lot of movie nights. We have educational talks. We have discussion circles that are like old-fashioned salons, and then just anything you can imagine that like a church does, but without all of the sketchy stuff, or anything that's, you know, coercive, or anything that's not fun. You know, that stuff is left out. We have the fun. We call ourselves spooky atheists because when we were marching in Pride, one of the MCs who was trying to read the script kind of gave up halfway through, and he was like, they're spooky atheists. And they kept going, so we're like,
oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, it was a true story.
That got
so
by
this year we wrote it into our MC script. The Crossroads Assembly is a congregation of spooky atheists, so on and so forth. So we'll own it. The next MC just said Jesus loves you, which is fine.
Yeah.
We have no issue with Jesus.
Oh my god, an MC? Oh, that's bad.
It's Texas. We expect it. It's fine.
I want to go back to what you were saying. So I think that maybe there are two different things there, and they're just kind of overlapping, because evolutionarily, yes, there is this activity that's happening.
Pattern seekers, yeah. I mean,
but theologically, so when you look at religions prior to monotheism, there was an acceptance. So the god Pazuzu is the ill, the ill wind of the west,
northeast,
southwest,
southeast. some direction.
A
Non-cardinal direction.
A cardinal direction that was supposed to bode ill.
Yeah, Wicked Witch of the West. So.
Right.
Yeah.
But you would.
I'm sure they were friends.
Still, you would still worship or pay homage to this evil god.
Yeah.
Exactly.
To seek
because if you pissed him off, it was bad. For
Yeah.
you, apparently.
Yeah.
Pascal's wager.
Right.
Right.
It's different
iterations throughout.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it was I think with monotheism that you start to get that dichotomy, and you need to start othering people because now you've eliminated. So with Judaism and monotheism of that.
Well, Judaism started it. The Jews started it.
Yeah.
It was their custom. Okay, so before that, you would if whatever tribe you belonged to, whenever you would go to a new area, you would just venerate whatever god they venerated, right? You'd be like, okay, here we're here, so we're gonna do this, right? Yeah. But the Jews did something very, very unique in the sense that they said, oh, you know what? We're gonna take our God with us wherever we go now. So it was
take our God and go.
Yeah, we're gonna take our God and we're gonna go. But no, it was like they were like, okay, no, we're not gonna worship. If we're in your land, we're not gonna just necessarily worship your God. We have our own God, and that's gonna be our thing that we just, and that's basically the birth of monotheism. So,
and they started scrubbing out.
Yeah, and they started trying to eliminate the other gods in the areas where they went.
They even started scrubbing out the feminine elements of Judaism.
Yeah, because there were some original like my friends who are like Jewish scholars and stuff. They're like they talk about like the original polytheistic
structures. Yes,
but with that narrowing of a single god, you have to create that, to me, that
exactly, because then they look at the people that they're even amongst, and they say, you know what, you don't worship my God. I brought him with me, and if you're not cool with me and my God, then you're another. You're not the same as me.
And I'm going to separate myself because I'm going to wear certain headgear. I'm going to wear certain outfits,
and these are
certain parts of myself in order to differentiate myself
exactly
in my covenant with God. And so. Yes. So to me, I think with monotheism and going back to my friend and I, that's what it is. Is it's not that he wants me to be the other. It's not that he wants me to be evil. No. But it's that's
he's been indoctrinated. That's part of it. But part of the indoctrination is the sense that we've had this established thing, this heritage, and we're going to go back to the thing that this is what separated us from the other. Mm-hmm. You have to do, because if you're wanting other people, like other them in quotations, scare quotes or whatever, you have to separate yourself from them somehow. And that's where ritual and dietary concerns or dietary things and garb comes into it. It's like, this is a way for me to show you how much you're not like me.
And that's why I do this, because I need to remind Christians that as much as they love their persecution complex, you can't be 73% of the population and be imposed upon. Fuck you. Seriously, you are not oppressed by anyone because we said happy holidays.
We have to acknowledge other religions.
Right. So I am going to be a visual representation of not you. Because they need to see that.
But I also do think that that there is a level of a need for you to be broken for your friend's perspective, because it's a validation of his belief that not just that like he's special. I think it kind of just confirms
he wants to save.
It's in your best interest. You need this in your life.
But also like it's a validation that he has chosen the right path that is going to make him happy. Because there is a narrative in the Christian faith of if you go with God, you will be happy, and if you don't, then you will live this lesser life that's that you need to save people from. And so the lack of validation that he gets when you show the person that you are is a rejection or a threat to the truth of his doctrine.
So what we're gonna I understand that this is something that we could like discuss at length. So we're gonna go around. Actually, Rose was like on top of that shit. She's been the only one. So we're gonna go next. We're gonna go Marius next. If you got plugs, if there are ways that people can reach out to you, contact you guys, or get involved with what you guys are doing, now's the time to let people know how they can do that.
Ditto.
Yeah. So not
everything she said.
Yes, contact at thecrossroadsassembly.com
There you go,
is our email.
crossroadsassembly.com.
Yeah, the Crossroads Assembly, Facebook, Instagram, and thecrossroadsassembly.com.
All right.
So you can find us out there. We'll publish our events online.
Sounds good.
Real quick, the reason I was laughing so much with the portable Jesus was the recently on Facebook I found and posted this like to-go package of like communion. It has like a little cracker in it and a little thing of wine.
It's a self-contained,
and it was so funny.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, this is ridiculous.
So we have
portable blood and body
tasty,
of Christ.
I guess.
We buy it in bulk.
Nothing but the packaging of Jesus.
It was like a little to-go cup that was so funny. It's like a lunch. Go ahead.
Courtney, one of the hosts of Atheist Edge, she has a couple other projects that she has going on. So if you want to let everybody know how they can interact with you on other platforms.
So I'm also part of Women of Deconversion, first Monday of every month. So if you go to their service a couple days later, you can or before, so depending on when it falls on. But yeah, so actually we've just started a new one. So the first and the third Monday of every month we have one of two Women of Deconversion groups. We are trying to expand it as much as possible, and it's mostly just about women who have deconverted from religion or are creedal atheists getting together and talking about different topics, and we'd like to just expand that community to support other women. And so there's that. I'm also president of Metroplex Atheists, as it's been mentioned before. And so if you're in the DFW area, we are here. We are that community that you can find as well as theirs, and just find and support your local communities wherever you are. Those are important.
So we have Chris, who's also host, Atheist Edge. What other platforms can people interact with you on?
Blog, sleepingandsundays.com, Twitter @sleepsundays.
There we go. Awesome. Anything else?
And TJ?
Short and sweet.
Yeah. I mean, I'm TJ, host, Atheist Edge. We're Atheist Edge. By the by, if you didn't know that already. We so as kind of highlighted here, we try to find people that we want to talk to in the community that either share our views or disagree with us. I mean, it could be both. And we try to talk to those people. We try to reach out to those people, build bridges with those people. We just want to have productive conversations with folks and get the sense out there that, hey, we're all one humanity, and let's talk about the issues that matter to us. Jim Hall is our patron. He's our father figure. He's our master at arms. He is our
daddy.
He's our dad.
Fearless leader.
He is the
don't do that.
He is the creator of this channel. So people don't usually we don't usually pay homage to Jim a whole lot on the channel. We just kind of take him for granted a lot. So this is my opportunity. I would like to take this opportunity to really thank Jim for creating this space and being a voice of reason in a very unreasonable age. So with that said, we are Atheist Edge. Please like this video. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe, and we would also encourage you to hit the notification bell so that in the future, if we put out content that you are interested in viewing, that you'll get the heads up on that. With that being said, hey, we would really like to thank our guests, the Satanists at Crossroads. So with that, this has been Atheist Edge. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Have a blessed day.
That was kind of tongue in cheek.